All right, Eric. So again, really great explanation. Thank you so much for sharing about the advisory package and what you're doing from that vantage point. I'm sure, everybody agrees that a firm foundation to begin with your marketing is very important, and you can't neglect or avoid that part of the process. Now, building off of that, you also kind of explained to me backstage a little bit about what you're doing from a practitioner point of view, because you've already got the assessment, the advisory, the strategy. Tell us about what you're doing when you get to the practitioner.
Right. Yeah. No, thanks, Adonis. So I think the practitioner, I mentioned in a prior video about the idea of you know planning your work, working your plan. This is where you start to work your plan, right? This is the practitioner. So this gets into really you've got a strategy, you've got a plan, you've got a roadmap. Now, how do you literally um, bring those things to life? And so it gets into a much more granular exercise in kind of building out project plans and timelines that are specific to the items on your roadmap. And so getting very specific about what do we want to accomplish, who's going to be involved, who's going to take the lead, who's, almost like a racy document where you're looking at what role do people play in the process. So you get into things like data-driven targeting and segmentation. Um, you know, Now that you've got the strategy, how do you segment your audience? How do you target them? There's a lot more capabilities today around data and the use of data from a targeting perspective. So that becomes a big part of pursuing the plan, whether that involves vendors or whether it involves tools or systems that you need to invest in. That becomes part of this practitioner phase. You get into marketing operations. How do you literally structure the marketing team and the marketing function? What's the workflow look like? How do you work with other functional areas within the company? You get into performance metrics and ROI analysis, setting KPIs. What are your baseline KPIs so that then you can measure your progress? Um, you get into really campaign design, so omni-channel campaign development. So what are the channels that you're going to use in your plan, and how are you going to execute in those channels and kind of bring that to life? So it's really a cascading of the planning. You start with the overarching umbrella of the strategy, and then all the downstream kind of work plans kind of flow from that. Agency and vendor management becomes a big part of this aspect. Um, you're going to have to find the right partners and the right vendors and the right agencies to help you bring this plan to life. I have a lot of experience working with dozens of vendors over my career in marketing, and I think you very quickly understand whether there's a fit from that vendor or not, kind of up front. And I think that's important. And that's because they're going to be extensions of your marketing function. They're going to be part of your marketing team. So you want to bring in agencies and vendors who really understand and can be that strategic partner with you. And then you get into content development. So we have the channels, we have the message, we have the strategy. What is the content going to look like? How are we going to build the content? Are we going to build it internally? Are we going to, again, partner with a vendor or an agency to help build that content? What's the content plan? How do we create content that is distinctive, that's differentiated? And so, you really get into the nuts and bolts of the strategy, and how do we bring the strategy to life? That's really part of the practitioner kind of package. If you're a B2B company, we would start to look at things like demand generation and account-based marketing. It may involve events. Events are often a big component of the B2B sales process. So we would start to look at, an event strategy. But really, it's the phase where you are bringing the strategy to life, and you're starting to kind of work that plan and all the downstream, tactics and channels that you've identified, and you're really deploying your team against that plan. So you're also figuring out, who do I have on the team that can help execute this? What are their strengths? What are their goals and aspirations from a career perspective? How do they want to participate in this plan, and how can they be utilized in the best way possible to help you achieve this? Because this is all a big exercise in teamwork. It takes a team to execute marketing really well, and it takes a team within a company to be part of the strategic kind of growth effort. And marketing is one of those teams, along with product or technology or sales, any of the other kind of functional areas of the company. So that's really the nuts and bolts and the gist of the practitioner package, and kind of that phase of a marketing build out or a marketing acceleration.